Hello, good morning. Happy Friday. Yes, it is Friday today. We have Zilby here. Um, Zilby has his favorite toy with him. Everything's good. Uh, Talking about his favorite toy. Albert, hello. How are you doing today? This thing. This is his absolute favorite toy in the world. It's a little broom. It's made of a silver vine stick. He loves it. It's one of the only things he cannot not play with, if that makes any sense. All right, so today we're working on the Axum middleware tutorial. Specifically, we are working on recording it. So we should probably review it really quickly, just to remind ourselves what's going on. And then we'll do the thing. So let's see. Okay, so we're gonna go to middleware code and we're gonna open that up in VS Code. How do I know what profile I'm in? That doesn't tell me. I mean, that's the branch. I feel there should be a name for it somewhere. Oh, is it this thing? No, I'm not signed in, but it doesn't say the name of the profile. Oh, there it is. Profiles. I'm on default. I want to do introduction to Axum. Is it introduction to Axum, or do I want? Well, yeah, that's the only other profile I have here, so that must be it. Okay. Oh, that's what it is. Okay, so if it has the first two initials of the name, that's what it is. Albert, you've been a Rust moderator for more than 24 hours? Awesome. Where are you modding? And congratulations. I hope that's a congratulations. The official Discord and Zulip. Ooh, I don't know about Zulip, but I am on the official Discord and I mostly lurk there. It moves too quickly for me. I got overwhelmed by everything that was happening on it, so I muted most of the channels. Especially since it's like a 24/7 server. There's so much stuff that just happens all day, every day. And I'm one of those people that don't red dots. I don't like numbers on the icon. And I want to know when people chat in my Discord. So therefore I keep that on. But then the other Discords, they like fill that up. I'm like, oh, I want to go take a look at it. So I just usually just like mark it all as red until eventually I get tired of it and just mute the channel. Para, hello. How are you doing today? Do you know how the job market is for Rust? It's not great, but then again, I wouldn't ever say that it was like great before either. I think the job market is as far as I can tell good for senior devs, senior Rust devs. And a little bit tougher for everything down and practically non-existent for junior Rust devs. That's my read on it, but I'm not a recruiter. I don't really have like my pulse on it too much. But that's what like people who are in there have been telling me about. That being said, I would argue that Rust or other languages of the same sort of like complexity are probably helpful in beefing up a resume to get a non-Rust job, if that makes any sense. All right, let's figure out what the plan is going to be. So first off, what is middleware? Then we're going to go into why middleware. Maybe I should let's just create a middleware function. We're going to create a basic middleware function. Then we're going to, what is middleware? Why middleware? State in middleware. Extensions in middleware. I forgot to ask, did that answer your question? Or there's also other things around it. Mr. Sanders, hello. How are you doing today? What's middleware? Middleware is code that runs between the request beginning and our route handlers running. So it basically runs in the middle of the request and us then doing something. It could also run stuff afterwards too, but people usually don't name it for that part. Usually it's sort of like, hey, it runs between, in the middle. How you get a job? You have to prove that you can provide more value than the amount of money you charge for a company. And if you can prove that in a way that's acceptable to the company and that they actually believe it, then there is a pretty good chance you'll get a job with them. I don't know if that actually answers your question, but that is how you get a job. That is highly what is it called? Highly compressed or something like that. It does. Awesome. Yeah, so like that's the entire interview process and all that stuff. I mean, to be honest, that's how you get a job in any industry, right? Like they nobody is going to hire anybody if they're going to cost the company money, or at least the intention is not to hire anybody who, if they're going to cost the company money. They want to make money, right? So if they hire you, it's because they think that you're going to provide more money than you're going to cost. And then of the people that are applying for jobs, they're going to choose the one that they believe has like the best value to cost ratio. And that's pretty much it. Like at the basic, that's what it is. Everything else is just strategy on both sides of how to either assess whether or not somebody has the ability to provide that value, or if the company is or like how to prove that. Water fryer. Oh, I'm sorry about that. That's the nicest way to remind me I'm almost useless to companies. I'm sorry. How I hope that you're able to like figure out a way to uh not feel almost useless to companies, but like feel useful to companies. There's a lot of different ways to do it too. Like there's different strategies. Like you can go dive deep on one technology and be an expert in that. You can be a jack of all trades. I think there's a missing piece though, like good fit. Good fit is underrated. I argue that good fit is part of how much value you can provide, because I've actually gone beyond that recently. Like when with the last couple times that I've been in a position where I can hire somebody, we changed our language. Instead of saying good fit, we started to do good ad. Good ad. Okay, you're getting there. Excellent. Hey, that's progress, right? You're gonna get to that point, and then you're gonna be able to prove it, and everything will be good. But yeah, I think good ad is a thing. I think that's more important than even fit. Extensions and middleware. So that could be. I guess this will be read extensions. So read extensions, write extensions, create extension. Extract body, put body back together. So extract body and then really like put I think there's a hidden one, which is Serde. So convert body to object. That's what the plan is for the video. But like when a guy who is really great dev but a jerk joins the team, that's bad. And the interview doesn't always filter that out. That's very true. There are strategies to being able to do that. My plan usually is to do a lot of pair. So any coding challenge that I do is usually a pair programming challenge. And then I often also role play a junior dev during those pair programming challenges. So it's like, okay, you've been hired, go through this thing, like, you know, try to like show me how you would do it. And it's interesting how people like will revert really quickly, even though they know it's an interview, to like any bad behavior they might have. And that shows. Also, we have another question that my CTO always asks, which is, when is it appropriate to raise your voice in a company? It is fascinating the number of people who out themselves. We've had somebody who answered when a developer doesn't like understand what you told them to do, then you can raise your voice at them. And we're like, thank you for that. No, you will not be getting this job. Either never, or during a team celebration where we're all like screaming and yelling in like, you know, in like how awesome things were. That's the only time. I think one person says like, if there was an emergency and like there was a fire and we needed to get everybody out of the office, I think I would be willing to raise my voice then. And we're like, okay, yeah, that's a good time. Unreal, hello. How are you doing today? Seen it where guy was great to get things done, dev, but code wasn't maintainable and he didn't work with team well. Road disaster. Oh, if they're both things are not there, that's a drain on everything. You feel like it's a trap question. It shouldn't be a trap question. I can see how some people might think that it is a trap question, but we had a manager in the past who raised his voice at his team members. And that is a big no-no. Like that will get the team in trouble, that will cause people to quit, that will ruin culture, that will ruin everything really, really, really fast. I would rather throw in a trap question and then just have to explain that and help people through it than not ask the question at all, though. Matt, hello, how are you doing today? Yep, get rid of the bad apples. That's the plan. Okay, so I think everything in here is pretty simple, except for the state thing. This one is the hardest one. And this is where we have to basically, instead of using the B, we use the hyper body. And then we do all these. Okay. And so basically it's like convert it to bytes. Convert it to a stir. Then you can turn it into the thing. You'll throw your notice 5 minutes after that happened to you. And that's the concern is if it's somebody who knows what they're doing and is like, okay, if there was a mid-level or a senior dev and somebody yelled at them at work, I would not be surprised if the next day they're like, I quit. If it's a junior though, and this is like one of their first jobs that they've ever had, they may not know, because look how much media there is of like people raising their voice and like in movies and TV shows at employees, and it just like that's how it is. People are accustomed to like thinking that that's the appropriate way to run a team. And that's not an appropriate way to run a team. And that's not how you're going to get results as a manager. No, you're going to lose a lot of money. But some people actually think that that's how it works. Friday is learning day, so you're working on a log viewer desktop app in Rust. Nice. Excellent. Okay, so here's how recording days work. I'm going to throw this on the side, and hopefully I'll remember how to do this. I at least have my sticky over here too. We do this in VS Code because a majority of people who, well, okay, so far most of you who have been buying the course are already members of the community, so you know about Helix, and you know that if you don't use it, it's okay. However, I do expect eventually to sell to people who aren't initial members of the community, and I guess like a 99% of developers are using something like VS Code as opposed to something like Vim. I don't know, I just made up that number. It's probably not true, but I don't want to like cause people to like freak out and think like, what the heck is going on with this editor? I want to learn about that, not this hard thing. So which by the way has happened to me before. That's why I'm so concerned about it. So here we go. We want to, I've got everything here. So let's go ahead and create a new branch. This is going to be the video lesson. We have everything installed that we know. I want to delete a bunch of stuff, don't I? So let's do that quickly. So custom middleware, I'm actually going to just delete custom middleware. We're going to keep with quotes here. So we're going to start with just something like this. So we're pretending that we're creating some kind of quotes API, create quote route handler running, and then it just returns that. That's fine. This is the quotes. We're creating I'm creating another router inside of here, which is going to, I think the big thing with this one is with state. What did I do? Or how did I have the problem with it? I don't remember anymore. Okay, so we have route layer, so middleware. So we're gonna run with this. So we have app state, and this layer there. Okay, that's good. Custom middleware, so we don't need you anymore. I could swear you used to just fix this automatically. Did you not? Is it like format? Format on save, that's what I want. There we go, okay. App state just has that address and port, so we can look at that. The main library is gonna be fine, and you're gonna be fine. Okay, so we can close you down. I also want, I don't have ThunderClient. Okay, so we're good to go with this. Excellent. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to turn off. All right, Twitch alerts gets turned off. Sorry, cat Zilby gets turned off. Main camera on, desktop audio is off. Yeah, mic and okay, share screen. Screen is on. All right, I think we're about ready for this. So if you haven't been here for this, actually, I'm going to turn on the Nightbot timer. Timer enabled. All right, if you haven't seen one of these before, I will not be responding to chat directly. So if you have a relevant question, thought, comment, something, suggestion, I will try to work it into the video. But if it's not relevant, if it's just like a hello or just something else completely, I'm going to ignore it and I'll try to come back to it after we're finished the recording. So with that being said, I think we're about ready to do this. So what do we think? What's the chance that I'm going to be able to do this first try? This is a fairly long recording. It's been a couple days since I've done one, so fun times. We're gonna start up here. All right, here we go. Hello and welcome to a lesson on Axum middleware. In this lesson, we're going to be going over what middleware is, how to create middleware, and then using it in a couple different scenarios, so like accessing state, accessing extensions, and also accessing the body. Let's go ahead and take a look at the app that we're starting with here. So it's basically a Hello World app, but we have added a route here. We specifically have a create quote. So we're sort of pretending that we have a quote collector type app. Basically, the idea would be a CRUD app where we're storing, retrieving, and getting quotes that we really like in the community. So all we're doing right now is we're just logging out that we've hit this, that we've actually just hit, well, the create route, and that's it. And we don't have any other routes for this. We do have, we've set ourselves up that we could have other routes, and this is all sort of collected together inside of another router that is nested in with the main router here. Let's go ahead and start the server. And if we hit that with Thunder Client, let's do a new request. We're going to do a post to localhost. What? This is 2600. And I think we just call it quotes. And if we do that, we don't have to send anything in really. Although we could, let's go ahead and send in something, because eventually we're going to care about what's in the body as part of middleware. So we're just going to have like, maybe we'll have the quote, and that will be hello world. Maybe we can have like, you know, the sayer, like who said it. Attribution, and in this case it would be me. I said hello world. I actually don't know who's the first person who ever did a hello world. I should probably look that up. That seems like valid for a quote. Okay, so we get this response back, hello from create quote router. Oh, and I noticed I did not see this down here. Also, you're yelling at me that the address is already used. That's a problem. I bet I don't have a server running for this. Wait, do I? Oh, I do. Okay, well that would explain why. Let's try this again. Okay, so we have info there, that's running. If we hit this again, there we go. Now we're seeing our debug message. Now everything is working there. I always like to sort of like check that out, get that working. I call it more of a canary test from like the old canary in a coal mine. Want to make sure that things are working well now, because if later on things are broken and I didn't do this test, is it because my new code doesn't work or because it never worked to begin with? Who knows? But now we know. Okay, so middleware. Let's start by actually just creating a middleware function all on our own. And then we'll go through like and talk about like what exactly that is and how it works afterwards. So I'm going to, I do like to store my middleware in a centralized location. So inside the router, I'm going to put a new folder. We're going to call it custom middleware. And I'm going to create, let's do a mod address. Let's pretend that we're going to have many middleware functions here. In fact, we probably will during the course of this lesson. So that's why I like to do like the folder with them, and I'll just sort of re-export them all together through mod. And in this case, I want, what am I thinking of? I'm thinking of probably just like a hello world middleware. We'll just do hello world. .rs. I need to, so this is in router. So in the router mod, we're going to mod custom middleware. In custom middleware mod, we're going to pub mod hello world. And in hello world here, we're going to write the actual middleware. So this is very similar to writing a route handler, but with a couple little differences. So we're going to do a pub async function. So that part is familiar. We have to give it obviously a name. So we're going to call this hello world. What this takes in a minimum of two things. That's already different than most route handlers. The first thing it has to take in is the request itself. So there's going to be a request. And that's going to be a request. Now notice that it's a hyper request, and it also needs a type associated with it. We don't really know what type this should be, so I'm actually going to set this to be a generic, which we're going to just call B for body. And we're going to throw that in there. And the second thing that we have to pass in is the next. So next is a special thing. It's basically going to be the next thing in line. So the next thing might be another middleware. It might be the route handler itself. We don't know, and this function doesn't really care. And then it also needs to be the same body. So it's going to be that B. And then we have to return a response. And we want this to be an Axum response, not the hyper response. Notice that the hyper response needs a return type, whereas the Axum response does not. And that actually makes things a lot simpler for us. Okay, we're almost done with the hello world one here. So what we want to do is we want to, well, first of all, we want to just sort of like print something out and say like, hey, this thing happened. So let's go ahead and we'll do a tracing. Let's do an info so it's a little bit easier to see. And we'll just say hello from hello world middleware. Now that we've done the logic, the thing that we really want to do, we want to run the next thing, because otherwise it's just going to hang and nothing happens, and that's not going to be happy. And we have to return a response anyways, otherwise it won't compile. To get the response, we can get that through next. So we can basically say, okay, let our response equals next, we run, and pass it in the request. Oh, I need to pull in next, otherwise it doesn't know what this is. And I need to pull in response. Import that from Axum response. Okay, excellent. And now we see, okay, this is a future. We need to await this. And now we have a response. We can just return the response. Okay, now all it's doing is telling us that, hey, we're not using this hello world middleware. Let's head back to the main router, and we're going to use it here. So we have our custom middleware. Let's go ahead and we're going to use custom middleware hello world. Now to use middleware, we're going to use the same layer that we use with extension, but we're going to do some, let's put it up here. So to make it just like with state or with other layers, it runs in order from bottom to top. So if I want this middleware to run before it hits the quotes, I need to put it below the quotes here. So we're going to do a layer, and then I have to make a decision, layer or route layer. With layer, it's going to run this middleware on all requests, regardless if it matches the path. With route layer, it's only going to run if it matches the path. With something like this, I think that we should just hit it only if it matches the path. So we're going to do a route layer. Now I can't just throw hello world in here, just like I can't throw this string for the layer in there. It has to, this one goes in extension. The same thing here, it has to go inside of a middleware. So I'm going to use middleware from Axum middleware. And then we have a from function. And then we're going to pass in, well, what the function is. So that's hello world. Make sure you don't accidentally call hello world right here. We just want a reference to the function itself. And there we go. Okay, so that should work. Our code is compiling. If we head over to our request and we hit send, we see hello from hello world middleware, and then we get our create quote route handler running. So we can see that running in between. So it's in the middle of the request starting and the route handler running. Perfect. Now let's head back to this middleware and make one little change to it. Notice that we have this let response here, and then I'm returning it down here. What happens if we put this tracing down here instead? Let's go ahead and find out. So if I hit save, we're going to come back to our request and hit send. And now our create quote route handler running happens first, and our hello from hello world middleware happens second. So let's take a look at what's actually happening here. What's going on is that this is running the next middleware or route handler in the chain. So I can have many middlewares, I can have many things sort of like running together. I could have many route handlers that run, potentially. What's before it, anything before it runs before the route handlers, before the next things, have their way with the request. With this one here, it's after. So it sort of like goes up and then back down the stack. And that's important to think about, because if we actually accidentally run the thing we want before our middleware, after we get the response, it's too late. So let's put this up here. So hello world from hello world middleware, and then we'll do another tracing info. How did everything go? We'll hit save and we'll run this again. And now we've sandwiched the route handler. So we have hello from hello world middleware, create quote route handler running, and how did everything go? Excellent. Okay. So that's like a basic middleware. This is the general basic idea. Let's continue on. So why do we care about middleware? Well, this allows us to extract some interesting logic that we might not necessarily want to have inside of the route handlers themselves. Imagine in the create route handler here, imagine that we were wanting to like grab user information, and that might be from like a header, from like authentication. And we would need to like check if the header is present. We would need to then validate token, get user from database. Then we could do other stuff with the users. Then we can finally create the quote. And then we're done. Notice here that these three things are completely unrelated to the creating of the quote. They're just things that we need to do before then. I would almost call them sort of like meta tasks that we need to do so that we know how to create the quote. We know if we can create the quote and how to create the quote. So these three things here are perfect for throwing into middleware. In this case, this would be maybe middleware for authentication. And then we can just put that authentication on the route and say, hey, you can only hit this route if it passes this middleware. So talking about passing middleware, we can return early. Because this has a return response here, I could just say, instead of this response, what if we return just like a status code? So if I just do status code, I don't want a hyper status code. I want an Axum. Is it I think it's HTTP status code. So a status code, maybe something like bad request. Now to turn this into a response here, I can do an into response. And now if I come back to new request and we run this, we get a 400 bad request. So our middleware can become guards that protect our route handler from running unless things work. So we can validate our objects coming in. We can do the authentication trick. We can do an authorization trick. We can do all sorts of other, we can set defaults on objects in the case that they didn't have it. So that way the route handler really can just focus on the one thing it's supposed to do and be good at. Okay, let's jump into actually just accessing things in middleware. So we have a state, and we have some layer with extensions in here. Now the state here, if we take a look, is just holds the address and the port, and that's being created in our main library and passed into the router here. So what if I wanted to access the state? What if I also want to access this extension here, which just has the static stir inside of it? And I just want that, for whatever reason, maybe the app state has a database connection, maybe it has some other information that we need, like we have an encrypted header, we maybe have the decrypting key in it. We need something like that in order to actually do what we need to do in the middleware. So let's go ahead and in our custom middleware, we're going to create a new folder, a new file, and we're going to say accessing state. All right, so to access state, it's actually pretty simple. We don't really need to do anything special with this. It's going to be pretty much exactly the same thing as we're doing before, but with one minor change in where we call and put the middleware in. We'll get to that in a second. So let's do a very bare bones basic middleware first. So this is going to be a pub async function. This is, call it accessing state. We know we need that request. So it's actually going to be more than that. We need to access state first. Now, the request basically consumes the body. So we can't get the state before the request. So it has to come first here. So we're going to get state, and that's going to be a state. We're going to use the Axum state extractor for this, which means we need to give it a type, which is the app state in this case. Then it's going to be the exact same thing. So we need that the B. So we want the request, which is going to be the hyper request. Request B. And then we need the next, which is going to be the next B. And we're going to return a response, which is going to be the Axum response. Okay. We already know that we're going to need to do that entire sort of next request thing here. I don't really care about running things afterwards, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it all in one line now. So we're just going to say next run, pass it in the request, and await. Okay, it's yelling at us that we're not using the state, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and just use it really quickly. We'll just tracing debug this out so we can see what's going on. So we're just going to say tracing info, the state is, and we'll throw in state. I'm going to debug print this out. We've already implemented debug on the state itself, so that's fine. All right, accessing state. Let's head back to the main router and add this middleware in. So I need to make sure that it has access to state, which means it has to come before state. Otherwise, the state won't actually be there. Besides that, it can come anywhere in this, in this order. I do want to add in the extension afterwards too, so I'm going to put it after this route middleware here. So we're going to do a route layer. I want a middleware from function with state. So this is really important here. We need to do the from function with state to have access to the state inside the middleware. And the first thing it wants is a clone of the state. So this is our job to basically clone it and add it in here. So here we have the app state. So we can just do our app state, clone it. State already needs to implement clone anyways, so this is no different than when it's automatically cloned behind the scenes for us when it goes into route handlers. And then the function. So in this case, this is accessing state. And we'll delete the parentheses. Okay. So everything seems to be fine here. Let's go ahead and run our request again. So if we hit this, now we see, okay, here it is. The state is state, app state, we have our address, and we have our port. So that's how we can access state inside of middleware. Notice again, just the order of it, because this can be a little bit confusing. It's the first thing that's printed out, and that's because it's the lowest down of the middleware on the list. It runs before this other middleware here. And then also before that, the quotes routes. Okay. What if we also want to get access to the extensions? Well, if we go into the accessing state middleware, as long as we do it before the request, we can use any order of extractors that we want. So, well, I can extract an extension with the extension extractor. So we can just do, I want the extension, using Axum extension. I want, this is like a message. And that's going to be extension. Now the type of that is just a static str. And now I just have access to this message. Let's go ahead and tracing log this. So the message is and everything compiles and everything should be nice. Now, extensions, if you give it the wrong type or something else happens, that you won't find out until runtime. So let's go ahead and execute this and find out whether or not we've done it correctly. And there we go. Okay, the message is hello from main router. All right, excellent. Everything seems to be fine. I do notice we did keep this 400 bad request in here. Let's go ahead and change that. Let's remove the status code here. I'll just comment that out. So that way we can still see it, but we don't need to worry about it. Okay, everything should be fine and we still get this back. Excellent. Okay, we can add a new extensions in. So let's say in this accessing state, let's say that we didn't like this message. This message is good, but you know what? I just sort of like want a different message in here. So I can either change the message or I can add a new one, or we can do both here. So what we can do is we can use the request to get the extensions, like all of them together. So we're going to do, let's go ahead and shrink that down a little bit. We're going to let extensions equals our request, and I want extensions mute. So if I get extensions on their own, it's just read only. We don't have write access to them. Extensions mute allows us to now, well, get extensions out of it, and then we'll do something with it. So I want to get out this message essentially, and then just rewrite that. So how to get out that message? So, well, what I can do is extensions dot, we can get, and then notice this get takes in a type T, because each extension can only be one type. Like I can't have like two extensions with static strs in them. That's just not possible. It would overwrite the previous one. So if I want to get the message that we already have here, that would be a static str. So this is going to be let our message. So I'll just shadow this message. We've already used it. It's fine. That gives us an option with a stir inside of it. So let's see. Let's do an if let for this, because I can just like keep everything sort of combined down into this thing, and I don't really care if it doesn't exist. I just don't want to do anything at all. So we're going to do an if let sum. Then in that case, so I have access to this message. Now, actually, notice this is a reference to a stir. I probably want to use the get mute. Since I have mute extensions. Now you're upset. Oh, because I need to have requests as mutable. So you need to be mute request. Okay, we're getting somewhere here. Now to update the message itself, we can dereference message. So I'm basically just updating the location of memory directly. So we're just going to set this to a new static string. We do need to keep it the same type. So in this case is I have been changed. All right, and that's it. Now what I could do is we can go to our, let's go to our quotes in create, and let's grab out the extension. And that type is a static string. And we don't need these comments here. We're just going to, so we have our create quote route handler running, and then hello from, let's just do another tracing. So we'll do a tracing info, and we'll just throw in the message. And so now when we run this, we should see that message first printed out once, and then in the route handler, so the last thing, well, second to last thing that prints out, that should be the updated message. Oh, I hit the button twice. But okay, here we go. We have the message is hello from main router. And then we have I have been changed after create quote route handler running. So that's how we can change an extension. But we can also create an extension where previously we didn't have one at all. This is most useful if we have like an authentication middleware and we want to go out to database and like maybe get the user object and put it in an extension so that we don't have to go get the user object in a route handler itself. And then that way, if we have multiple middleware that are relying on that, we don't have to get the user object multiple times. We just get it once. So let's come into our custom accessing state. So I just want to, one last thing that we're adding here. I don't like to mutate state if possible. I sort of like to keep that as like the state for the entire server, and then middleware sort of extensions for things that are being injected in the middle of a route. It's sort of like a thing that works in my brain really well. I do recommend that at least trying it out, seeing how you feel like it before you jump into trying to use arcs and mutexes inside of states. Because then you don't need to do that in an extension. Okay, to add something to an extension. Well, we already have these extensions here, and it's a mute extensions. So let's say I want another message like this, or I want like some kind of, I don't know, some information. So this is state. Let's put the port inside there because we have that inside of state, right? Let's do extensions. We're going to insert in it. This is going to be an extension. And we want the port, which is going to be that state, the port. And that's it. That's all we have to do. Now, if we go back into our quotes here, we can get another extension and grab out the port. We know that that's a U16. So this can be an extension. Port, which is an extension of type U16. And we can now tracing. So let's say we'll do this again. Tracing info, port. Probably should do that inside of the brackets. Okay, let's try this. And now there, let's see, where are you showing up? The message is, how did everything go? I have the port there. I did not see it in here. Make sure that we got this. Okay, so tracing, how did it, oh, wait, wrong thing. Where am I looking for? I'm looking for in the create here. So we have tracing. Let's actually just put in port is that. Everything is saved, I believe. Let's run this again. Oh, I got a 500. I didn't notice that. Missing request extension of type U16 was not found. Perhaps you forgot to add it. Is that not what, that should have been the type that was put in there. Let's go ahead and let's go back to, this is the runtime error that you can run into with extensions. It won't yell at you at compile time, always at runtime. So in our accessing state here, so we have this extensions, insert, what do you return? You return, insert returns an option with, if you already have an extension this type existed, it'll return the previous one. I want to return state.port. That is a U16, so we know that there's a U16 here. I'm doing this before the run, so it should happen before the route handler, does what it wants to do. I don't think we've lost state. We just let's go ahead and just in case. Let's put a reference to state here, just in case that I've lost ownership of state and it doesn't like this. I don't think it has a problem because I think everything inside of state is copy, but just in case, let's try this. So I saved everything. You've restarted. Let's run this again. It's still yelling at me. Now the previous thing was running. Well, I guess like it's the new thing running, but it crashes, and therefore now notice here the route handler doesn't finish running, so we don't see that logged out, but we do see the how did everything go. So even though it crashes in the route handler, our middleware after the fact still runs. We could check the response and see whether or not it's an error or not, and then do something about that. What did is you like, are you what type are you? Axum state port. Type of view 16 was not found. I don't need to install a software update. Perhaps you forgot to add it. Yeah, see Axum extension. Okay, so Axum state. Let's see. We want, so we insert into extensions and extension. Do I need it not to be an extension state? Could I just do state.port? Oh, that might be it. So if I run this again, now we're okay. And now we see the port is 2600. All right. I forgot that you do need to do in the main router the extension here with the layer, but in the middleware here, you don't need to do the extensions here because it sort of knows that it's an extension already and sort of wraps it automatically for you. So that is something good to know, and we've worked our way through it. Okay, so that was how to create a new extension. So time for the fun one. How do we get access to the body? Because like this is all interesting. We can get anything that we can get an extractor for, like headers or anything else, we can just throw into here. We've already done that outside, like, in normal route handlers, and you can just do the same thing here. But the body of the request itself is different because I can't just throw JSON in here because the request is where the body is. So what do we do with that? Let's go ahead and create a new file. We're going to call this handle body, or like a process body, like body middleware. And we're going to pub mod body middleware. Okay, so we're not going to use state in this case. We're just going to do as pure bare bones as possible to try to keep this as simple as possible, because there's going to be a lot of things going on here, but it's going to be okay. We're going to get through it. So we're going to start with a pub async function like normal, and we're going to call this the same thing. So we're just going to call it body middleware. We need our request, which is going to be a request from hyper, and I haven't figured out how to make this work with the same generics that we're using previously. So instead, we're going to give it a specific type, and the type is going to be a body type from hyper. So hyper actually has a body for us. Make sure it's a body and not HTTP body, because that's where we can end up running into trouble. So I want that one, and then we want next. And this is going to be the exact same type here. So request and next body. And then we're going to be doing a lot of things that can fail. And I want to be able to use, I want to be able to actually handle errors and return early and do other stuff. So I'm going to return a result, which we're allowed to do this here and change the signature of it. And if we're successful, this is going to be a response, which is that Axum response. If we're not successful, we get to put whatever we want here as long as it implements into response. So in this case, let's just return a status code. Okay. Let's start by doing the normal thing at the end, right? So we're just going to return an okay, next, run request, and await. And that's our bare minimum going with this. Okay, let's go back to the middleware main route handler, and we're going to throw this in here at least just to wire it up to make sure everything is working properly. Because I have noticed that if you can write the middleware, and if you don't wire it up, everything will look like it's fine, but then as soon as you add it in here, Rust Analyzer will know exactly the context that it's running in and go like, ooh, actually this is not right, the errors. So I'm going to put this, it doesn't really matter where I put this. Let's just put it right before our quotes here. So we're going to do a route layer. I definitely want this to match on the routes here. In fact, I want this to be part of like the quotes. And maybe I even just want this to be middleware that runs just for the quote. I can put this for not quotes in here for this router on this specific route. I can even do. So we're going to do a route layer, and this is called body middleware. And get rid of the parentheses. Okay. The trait bound, fire following. Okay, so let's extract into. So we have super, custom middleware, body middleware, body middleware. Okay, so that is the function. So, oh, you know what? I forgot. We have to do middleware from function. That's the error that you get if you don't do the from function. I got ahead of myself. And then body middleware. There we go. Then don't actually try to call it. All right, so we should have no errors at this point in time. And we should be able to come back to our body middleware now. And we need to get access to, well, the body itself. So this is going to be a few different steps here. So let's say we want to validate, or we want to do something. We're going to do like a full validation in another lesson. But we want to maybe like get this quote before we pass it on. So I'm just going to create a quote struct here so we can use that. I've already installed Serde and Serde JSON, so we can use deserialize and serialize, and then also Serde JSON to do fun things with that. So we're going to have a pub struct. Actually, I don't think this needs to be pub, but we'll find out. So struct, this is going to be a quote. What do we have on it? We have a quote and an attribution. So going to be a quote, that's going to be a string, and an attribution, which is going to be a string. Okay, and we need to derive, serialize, deserialize. We only really need to implement deserialize because we're not turning it back into a into like a string afterwards. We're just sort of deserializing it. But oftentimes I just end up putting both on. That being said, you can choose like which ones you really need based upon the situations you have. And let's go ahead and throw debug on here too, so we can debug this out with tracing once we have the access to the quote. Okay, so now that I have that, all right, so first off, we need to get access to the body, which means we need to consume the request, which is going to, well, it's going to ruin this because, well, once we get this, well, we'll see. So we're going to do let, and then this is going to be a tuple type. So let's take a look at what we're doing. We're going to do a request into parts. Now, the reason we're doing into parts instead of into body or just the body method is because I need to be able to recreate the request afterwards, and we need more than just the body. We need all the parts too, and the parts are everything that's not the bodies, like the headers, the extensions, the path, things like that. So we're gonna do into parts, and then if we notice what this returns, it returns the parts, and then the T, the generic, which is going to be this, the body. So we're going to do let parts, and body equals that. Okay, easy so far. We've got the parts and we've got the body. Next up, we don't really know what this is, and so we can't. There's not really much we can do with it. But because we used a hyper body here, there is a method on it called toBytes that allows us to just get the raw bytes of the request. So let's get that. Now this is something that absolutely can fail. So we want to handle that. So we're going to do a let. This is a. I'm going to do a body bytes, or we're going to just call this bytes. We're going to do body. This is going to be, it's also not a method on here. We're going to use the method from hyperbody. So it's a little bit interesting. So we're going to do hyper body. We want the lowercase body in this case because we want the module. And then there's a function, toBytes. Now this takes in the body and it can absolutely fail. So we need to await this, and then we notice that it's a result. So we want to map the error. Let's just grab the error out here and let's print it out. So we're going to do a tracing error. So this is going to be what happened here. I like to print out a full message just in case, because this is in middleware. It's going to sort of like appear in our logs in random weird places because it's running between other stuff. So in this case, we are error getting bytes, and it should tell us what method at least it's coming from. So at least we know it's this specific line. So error getting bytes, and then I just want to print out this error. And then I also want to return a new error, which we're just going to do the status code. Do a status code. Let's do an internal server error because this shouldn't happen. And we can now question mark that, so that we now have access to the bytes. Next up, we can use the bytes to get a stir. So in the same sort of pattern that we did here, there is a function on the standard library called from UTF-8. So we can do let our, we can just call this the quote string, or maybe like the raw quote or something like that. So raw quote equals, this is going to be standard, a stir from UTF-8, and this takes in a reference to a array of U8s, which essentially is the bytes. So, because if we take a look at what bytes really are, it should tell us in here somewhere that it is. Oh, it doesn't say it's here. I think you have to go to the documentation itself, and then it will tell you what they are. But we have to trust this. Let's do this. This is gonna be a reference to the bytes. Now this again gives us a result. So we're gonna have to map the error. We're gonna get the error. We're gonna tracing error. All right, so what happened in this case? So this is gonna be error converting bytes to stir. Really, it's a stir like that. And I do want the error printed out so we can see exactly what that is if there is an error. And again, this is going to be an internal server error. So we're going to do another status code, internal server error, and now we can question mark that. Okay. Now we have a stir, which is the raw quote. But if we have a stir, we can now use stir.json with this. So we finally can convert this into the quote itself. So letter quote equals stir.json from stir. I want this to tell it that it's a quote. We have to hand it the stir itself, so that's the raw quote. Again, this could fail, so we have to map the error. All right, so that's tracing error. Okay, so what are we gonna do here? What's happening? This is error, error converting like raw body to quote. And we'll print that out. Now, if this can't convert it into a quote, but we got to this point, then we actually know that we didn't get something of the right shape, which means that it's the client's fault. So we're going to go ahead and return a status code, bad request. All right, we have a quote. So we can now, all of that work, so we can just print this out, because this is just, we're logging the body in this specific case. We could at this point in time validate that maybe like the quote has, you know, a long enough quote in it that has an attribution that has like, you know, what we expect to be in there. So things that we want to see in there, we can validate that. Or maybe if we don't require something to be in there, but we really expect it in the route handler, we can set a default. We can do all of that stuff at this point in time. And then if we were to do that, I would probably recommend throwing it into an extension so we don't have to re-serialize, deserialize that again. It just already is there for us. Let's go ahead and print this out. So we're going to tracing info, the quote, and throw in the quote there. Taking ownership is fine for this. Okay. All right, we're almost done. So notice that we're not okay. The request has been consumed. We lost the request way back up here when we did into parts. So we need to recreate the request for us. To do that though, we need a body, and unfortunately this body got consumed here when we did 2 bytes. So we don't have a body anymore either. So that's the first thing we need to do. We need to recreate a new body. So let's do body equals, we can use the body from hyper. So body from, and then just hand it the stir, which is, do we hand it? No, we handed the bytes. We're going to hand it the raw bytes because we did not consume the bytes when we convert it into a stir. So we still have access to those. So from bytes. That gives us a body. Now that we have a body, we have both body and parts. So we can now create a request. So let request equals request from parts, and we have to hand it the parts and the body. Well, we never did anything with the parts, so we're okay there. And the body, well, we just recreated it, so now we have that, and that gives us, okay, so we have the request, and we use that in the run function. And there we go. Okay, that was a lot of coding, and we haven't actually tested it. So let's go ahead and do that. Everything is working fine. Our server is running. We have no errors. Let's go ahead and run this request. And here is the quote, hello world, attribution Brooks. And then it continued on. We get our 200 okay. We get our hello from the quote route handler. Everything worked together. So let's go through this again, because this was a lot. When we want to do anything with the body, we need to first consume the request and break it into its base parts. The parts, we usually don't really need anything to do with the parts except for putting it back into, well, a request again. And that's because we can use extractors here above the request. And those parts will give you the parts. Once we have the body here, we can now use that to get it into bytes. From that, we use the bytes to get a stir. We use the stir to finally convert it into a quote. Now, if we don't have JSON coming in, we still have a stir of whatever is coming in. Now, if you have like a file or something else, you're definitely not going to want to try to convert that into a stir, but you can still store that as bytes, then do whatever you want with that. So the bytes is probably the most global thing we'll be doing, and then the rest of it is based upon whether or not we know it's a JSON object. Since it's our API, we can control when this middleware runs. Like, for example, we are making sure this middleware only ever runs on the post create quote route. So it's never going to run on anything else. Once we have access to our JSON object, in this specific case, we do what we want to do with it. In this case, we just log it out. And then we have to recreate the body. We use the body that we just recreated to recreate the request. And then finally, we can pass that into next run. And then we're done. So it's a lot, but it is hopefully not quite so scary once you do it a couple times. Unfortunately, this body, we can't clone it. So we have to, I believe, let's find out. Yeah, there's no clone method on it. So we can't actually do anything else. So in case you're thinking that maybe you could just clone this and not get away with not doing that, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So, all right. And that's it. That's everything we can do, you know, with middleware. I mean, there's a lot more that you can sort of like invent and work with it, but this will get you going and get you started with it. So with that, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this has been helpful, and I will see you in the next lesson. Bye. And hello everybody. That was a long one. Actually, it was only like 20 minutes or so. I mean, so it was long, but not super long. I think we've done 40-minute lessons before, which is a lot. But let's see. All right, so what did I miss? Well, first of all, let me turn off the... I don't want to turn off the timer because I've done that before and I lost the chat. So let's see. Niank, hello. How are you doing today? Uyan, hello, meow. Just make an application entirely out of middleware. Ironically, I think you can do that, because you can do the layer instead of route layer, and it will match on every route, including if it doesn't match. And then you can just on one of them choose to return a like status code 200 with data, so it would just work. That being said, it would probably confuse a lot of people. Dina Remix, hello. How are you doing today? And then Daddy Swan, Staiwan, hello. How are you doing? Vimero, good morning. Good morning. Medeve, thank you for the you got this. DG, you're really excited for Flavicopes new stuff. We randomly subbed to the newsletter. The site only had solutions to random errors. We were fixing a frustrating React bug of client launching on the 21st. I don't actually know Flavicopes, so I don't know what that is, but it sounds good. And anything that helps us do more stuff or better stuff is awesome. Coder, hello. Is this Rust? Yes. So this is Rust on the back end using a framework called Axum. Okay, so I answered your question, Bimero, in the video of the could you clone the body? No, unfortunately not. Hyper did not make body clonable. Although this was old Hyper, right? 0.14 or so. I haven't checked 1.0 to see if they added clone in for that. That would be a big change, and that would make things a lot easier. Coder, you're okay. You're a React.js developer. If you want to get like React is an awesome framework. There's some React like frameworks in Rust if you're interested in that. Otherwise, it's like every language is good. Every framework can be good. Thank you, Bimero. Thank you, Matt G. Then it wouldn't be middleware for the. Can you just make everything middleware? Yeah, so it's actually not for YouTube. This is going to be for a custom course that I'm creating for my LMS. So I record it here, which I sort of like call free tier. So you can sort of like, the VOD's going to go up on YouTube, but it's going to be sort of like in this entire VOD. So you have to search for it. But if you pay for that, you only get that section gets cut out. So you don't get me constantly being distracted by everybody else. Which reminds me, I should turn back on everything. So we get Zilby again. Alpha Bra, hello. How are you doing today? Do you explain the use of hyperbody versus Axum body and why you use them both? Is that in a video somewhere? I think I just say, hey, we need to use that one. And I can't remember. I don't think I do. It might be confusing. Yeah, it might be. It might be one of those like low level on the Bloom's taxonomy thing of like just do it, don't worry, memorize it, and then like we like step up the ladder too. Because like that's the other thing is like I don't want to go up too far. But I can see what you mean. Alphabet, you're on chapter 4 of the book, Ownership. You were on chapter 3 the other day, right? That's good progress, right? So congratulations on that. Aaron Nurak, hello. Hello from Russia. How are you doing today? You understand namespaces 2 better now. Excellent. Awesome. So what I think I'm going to do is I think we're going to keep it like this with the not really explaining too much about the body besides just using it. When I get feedback of like actually taking it, I might do another lesson of like, okay, more advanced of like, why do we use this body? And sort of like throw that in there. I don't want to be one of the nice things about like owning the LMS is that I can just do that and just like easily throw in new things when I want to. But I don't want to like, I'm concerned that I'm going to overwhelm people if I like add that in there too early. All right. So all that stuff is working fine. We're happy here. Did anything happen? Not really. So I think we're all good. So that all being said and done, let's go ahead and save this before I lose it. I'm going to leave all the warnings and everything else in there. That should just be fine. And you are all happy. Okay, so we are on the video. So we recorded video lesson. And we'll publish that up. Let's see. Okay, this is the first time watching. What do I think about Rocket RS? Rocket is a great framework that has a lot of potential that I cannot recommend for production use because of the sort of open source structure that it has right now. And what I mean by that is it's a single person running the project who sometimes goes on really long breaks. So like sometimes recently there was a big release for Rocket. That's great. but the problem is there was like a long time between the previous release and this one. So what happens if this one person just disappears for a while, and there's a bug or some security vulnerability or something else? If you are in like a larger company, you might be needing to adhere to something like FedRAMP or SOC 2, ISO 9001, something like that. Those things sometimes require that you be up to date on security vulnerabilities. And if Rocket didn't update that, you would basically be forced to either lose your certification, which could be devastating to getting clients, or do an emergency switch to another backend that does have that. So that's that thing there. Let me turn off the that timer. Let's see, this was Nightbot. Disable the recording video timer. And back to you. Okay, so Alpha Bra. So does that answer your question, Aorg? Alphabet, if you get a second, can you explain statement versus expression to me? I don't understand intuitively. Semicolon use. I know statements don't return values and expressions do. I mean, you kind of explained it there yourself, but let's go ahead and let's shall we ask a let's ask an AI. Now let me see if I like their answer. So tell me the difference between expression and statement. So this is something that's like language agnostic. So it's really more of a programming terminology rather than just something specific for Rust or any other language. So you're pretty much right here. So an expression is a piece of code that can be evaluated to a value. It is composed of variables, operators, function calls, and literals. Okay, but the most important part is this: evaluated to a value. Now, statement is a piece of code that executes a specific instruction or tells the computer to complete a task. It like just does a bunch of stuff, but it doesn't return a value. That being said, I have seen people just like use the terms interchangeably, which is technically wrong, but most people don't really call people out on it too much. So, what I would probably stick with this one is like an expression is something that evaluates to a value. So one cool way to sort of think about this, let's go to the play. Let's go to the playground here. So let's say we wanted to do an if statement. An if statement is a statement if it just does something in there. So let's say like I do let 5 equals 5, and I just do if 5 is equal to 3, then we're gonna debug not 3, else debug 3. Okay, so if you run this, okay, so we got I literally got this backwards, didn't I? That is kind of hilarious. That like in the simplest if statement, I'm like, why? How did I get that backwards? That's my dyslexia kicking in there. Okay, we get not 3. We fixed our bug. Okay, so this is just a statement, right? It's like this itself is a statement, because it's not returning anything at all. But it can change the if statement to an expression if, and this is most important when you're communicating with other developers, and because that way you can use less words and they understand what you're saying a little bit faster. Obviously, if people on your team don't know all those same words, then that's the first thing to do is like training time. It's a teachable statement something. So let's do like let response. And then I'm going to just respond with 3 or not 3. And then we're going to debug response. And so we get exactly the same thing happens, but I just turned this into an expression instead of a statement. Does that help, AlphaBra? If you change the condition to a value, it becomes an if expression, right? Yes. And that's, I would say like 99% of the time, the most important thing here for like the reason why you need to know that is that you can Google for things, or you can ask as a more senior developer, hey, what's going on here? I have a blah expression. They know exactly what you're talking about. Otherwise, they might get really confused and give you bad advice. The concept does seem kind of weird in Rust, right? Because like this is one of the few, I guess like I think there's other languages that do this too. I have not done some of the other, what is it called? The other functional languages, but I believe that some of them do it. But like if you're coming from like JavaScript land, Python land, you don't get this. Except if you're using a oh, I just forgot the name for it. I was about to say tuple, but that's completely wrong. What's the type, the if statement that's in line, that's like one line thing? Ternary statement. Thank you, Rob Code. Yes, think of this like a ternary statement. That's still an if statement. It just is different. It's just very different syntax. So you probably have used them before. It just looks different. It just uses the same if keywords instead of the ternary sort of like style. Let's see. Aor, thanks, understood. Can I suggest a framework from SSR to Rust? I have not used SSR on it, but I've heard it's easier. I've heard like, you know, it's very doable with Leptos, and then they've added it into what is it called? They've added it into U, but I haven't tried it on either of those yet. But I've heard nicer things on Leptos than U, but like your mileage will vary. Basically, Leptos is signal-based front-end framework that has server-side rendering. U is a React-based front-end framework that has server-side rendering. Another question: if you have a block in the middle of a program, why doesn't that need a semicolon? So, good question. Let's say we just throw in a block here, like that, and I can just, I can just do. I can do this here, and this just works, right? Now I don't need a block. I don't need a semicolon for this because this is just a scope block. So it's just saying, hey, I want to scope everything inside of it to this block. So this response variable . Response is dropped here. It's not available outside of here. It is gone. Its memory has been cleared and it's done. Now, if I wanted to put this response out here and wait until here to drop the response, I need to get the response outside of here. So I could just do that. And this, oh, now I need a semicolon here. And this just works. So basically any block you can return from, and any block can be an expression or a statement. Initially, it was a statement, and then I turned it into an expression because I needed to get something out of it. And any block, whatever the last thing is without a semicolon, is a auto return from the block. That's really important. It's not returning from the function, it's returning from this block. Let's see. Poggy, hello. How are you doing today? Oh, you learned Rust proper from the ECS course? Nah, nice, excellent. Oh, and it clicked for you towards the end. Yeah, that's excellent. I love that. I'm super happy that you were able to learn Rust from the ECS course. Awesome. Also, great to have you here. All your projects are in Actix. Is it worth migrating to Axum? So probably not. Like Actix is still, oh, okay, hold on. Actix Web or Actix? This is an important question because Actix has not been, is not being actively developed as much anymore. Actix Web is very active developed. Okay, Actix Web, got it. So I would, if it's a learning project, sure, yeah, absolutely, right? Because then you can learn Axum if you want to learn Axum. But if it's like if it's doing anything real at all, there's no reason to really like switch over. Actix Web is still just as good. It's wicked fast. It's pretty awesome. So I would probably stick with that and then just decide if you want to learn it, just new projects can go in the new language. Hopefully that helps. But like there could be lots of like discussions and other things about why you would or would not want to do that. It was a learning project, but turned into a startup because a bunch of people wanted to buy premium service. So yeah, if you have like actual real customers on it, then like, okay, so if I were to put my business hat on, which I don't actually have a business hat, that would be pretty cool. I would like, what's the value you're going to add to your customers by switching to Axum? All you're going to do is just take away products dev time, like feature add time from your customers. Like they're not going to like that. And they don't care what technology it's written in. All they care about is, do they get the service you're providing? Only chase the new shiny if it adds value. Yep, that's a really good way to put it. You have like 5 customers and about 500 plus users. That's still a lot. Like that's still like people who are both paying you and then relying upon you to provide a service for them. Even the free users are, important, right? So it's I mean, ultimately it's up to you, but I would seriously ask, like, okay, here's a better way to think about it. What's the economy of choice here? So if you do this move to Axum, will it give you something more? If you don't move to Axum, what could you do instead? Which one has higher value for your customers, right? Because if whatever has higher value for your customers theoretically will result in more payments, more people converting into customers as opposed to just being users. If that makes any sense. What would have been different if Axum was adopted from the beginning? Oh, that's another good way of putting it. Also, hello, blah. All right. Unfortunately, my alarm went off. I have to get ready for my day job, which is coming up. Poggy, if you want to continue chatting about this, I will be on Discord. Well, I usually just hanging out on Discord all day. But here is Discord. Here is the link to that, which of course doesn't show up on does not show up on YouTube. Let me fix that really quickly. Where's my there you go. Okay, there is the link on Discord. I'll be happy to sort of chat about all of those things, technology in general, and programming, and we'll be happy. I also love that Nightbot deleted my Restream bots message. The bot's fighting again. I should probably whitelist Restream bot. Okay, anyways, with that, let's go ahead and find a... You could add more middlewares easily, like instrumentation. You had to write your own proper logging framework for Prometheus because Actix one was bad. So yeah, those are considerations, right? Like it might allow you to provide a better service if you switched over. It's a balancing act, right? Okay. Let me find if there who can we raid? Let's see. So we've got Sherry Merrick's Art is making a chatbot in Java. TBD Gamer is making a prototyping and architecture. Let's take a look at the prototyping and architecture thing. That sounds like it might be interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a raid for TBD Gamer. Oh, yes, I can do that. I'll undo that. Absolutely. Let me go find the channel so I can actually watch it and join in. So who is this? This is Ham Reborn. Oh, that's a great username. I need to search for it. Ham Reborn. Cool. Let me copy raid Ham Reborn. We'll set that up. Channel is intended for mature audiences, so warning for that, just in case Ham swears or anything. But he is making looks like a chatbot in C#. I see .cs in there, which could be interesting. So anyways, everybody have a great rest of your day. I will be back this afternoon at around 2:30 p.m. To continue working on this. Okay, he doesn't. Okay, excellent. That's good to know. So with that, have a good one and see you next time. Bye.